Hey YouTube! I am going to talk today again about the parasite. I'm going to talk about it on a bigger scale, and I'm going to show a lot of pictures on my phone today. I'm going to try to bring a few subjects together about the body and what I currently see going on. And I really want to preface with that this is always for me, this is digging and searching, and I never stop. I'm never going to stop. I see that so much on YouTube. People get onto a subject or they get an idea of an answer and they just stop and poke at it endlessly. This is, we're not going to stop till we figure everything out. And so this is where I'm at today, and we're going to bring a few things together here. So we've been talking about the parasite, and last time that we talked bigger picture, we talked about Mount Meru and the color green, and that I was starting to see our cell here as a dying cell and one that had been infected. So, and then the last video we did was the parasite protocol video. So as you all know, especially if you watch that video, that I myself have been doing the stuff that I need to do for my body to rid myself of, what is parasitic, and perhaps what I'm going to say today even more than that. And this is true of everybody's body here. There's no exceptions to this. Everybody, we're all living in this. We're all inside of this. So this applies to all people. And we're even going to get a little bit into identity today and what I'm starting to see about maybe who they are, who we are, and why. So we talked about the parasite, like we sort of talked about this. I found this little guy, which is a great image of the lion-headed dragon that surrounds our cell, that parasitic entity that is here. And we talked about the bore, that they bored through the cell, the aurora borealis, the hyperborea, this sort of infestation that happened. So looking further into that, and I had a really great commenter mention that reptiles live really, really well under blue light. That if you have a reptile, you have to have a blue spectrum light for them to sit under. And I want to say, I'm not sure how much I've said this before. How much have I written down of this? That perhaps all my notes are up here. That what I see is that we are in a body. We're not in space, and we're not just in a cell, but we're in the body of another living organism, which is likely in the body of another living organism. And this, of course, is going on inside of our bodies, inside of their bodies, and so forth, that Russian doll effect, okay? And so, if we're in the body, where are we in the body? I think a lot of my notes are actually going to be in my phone. So let's go into my phone here. I've just been saving a million pictures to talk about this. And so we've talked about how we are the blood in the body, and I actually think we may be something far more specific than that, which I'll talk about today. And so here is a photo of the veins. Here we go. The heart, and you see the lungs, and you see how the veins are blue and arteries are red. Okay, and see where they meet and all the little rivulets where it turns purple there, where there's an exchange between the blood that is in the artery, which has been reoxygenated in the lungs and pumped through the heart and is, there we go. And then it meets those rivulets, but when it begins to become deoxygenated, bear with me, And it is the vein, the blue vein, that's going to carry that deoxygenated blood back up into the lungs to get reoxygenated and pumped back through the system. Okay, so wherever we are inside of this body, we are most certainly under a blue light. We are in a vein, as far as I'm concerned. And so the vein is moving that deoxygenated blood right back up to where it can get cleared out. And I'm starting to see the water as the deoxygenated blood. And you know, here's another image of those blood cells moving through the artery, and that there's a system of red and blue, right? The red and the blue, which everyone's always talking about. And so where should we go from there? I have another, here it is. So the difference between a vein and an artery, and we'll talk about the vein first. Well, let's talk about the artery first, okay? The artery is a larger vessel, okay? It's a vessel, and it carries blood from the heart to the rest of your body. It is oxygen-rich blood, so it is filled with oxygen from the lungs. It has very thick walls, very sturdy, thick walls, and it flows in pulses. You know, that heartbeat, that's how it flows, is in pulses. And it flows under high pressure, okay? And when I say these things, think about reality. Like just take it and put it right to what we're experiencing here. And so a vein is blue and returns blood to the heart and lungs. Okay, and it contains valves. It is arteries don't contain valves. That's why they have the high pressure, and they just move and flow with that pulse. Okay, it's your golden age. But veins have valves in them that stop the blood from backflowing. So it has pressure valves. Okay, it is oxygen poor blood. All right, and the blood flows smoothly, but not under high pressure. It flows under low pressure. So low pressure, deoxygenated blue, and it has very thin walls. Let's see if I can find my note here on that. Here we go. Yes. Okay. So veins carry deoxygenated blood, except the pulmonary vein. Veins have thin, non-elastic, and less muscular walls. And veins are usually positioned closer to the surface of the skin, while artery is going to be deeper within the body. Let's see, no valves in arteries, valves in veins. And they possess a wide lumen. And a lumen is just the width, okay? It flows under low pressure in the vein, high pressure in the artery, blue, red. Let's see, yeah, it's wider by quite a bit. And okay, so a vein has a sluggish movement of blood. It's slow and sluggish. That feels right, huh? And so if you were to cut an artery, you've got spurting blood. Like, that's dangerous. That can kill you, right? You cut a vein and you've got pooling, slow-moving blood. Veins have collapsible walls, okay? Walls that can collapse. And arteries, a wall of an artery is far more rigid, safe. Veins get filled up at the time of death, and arteries empty up at the time of death. And we'll maybe come back to that a little bit. So the CO2 levels are different between the two, the oxygen levels, the contracting of the muscles, like we were talking about in the artery. It has a contraction of muscle, a pulse, and which is absent in the vein. And let's see. And then that's just about disease. Okay, so that's the difference you have between the vein and the artery. And you saw how, they have the rivulets that meet in between where there's a blood exchange going from red to blue where you see the purple. Okay, and if you're watching all these videos about plasma events and this sort of thing, this makes sense, right? We're clearly in a body. We're clearly part of a body. So one of the things I started to realize was that if we're part of a body, let me see, did I show that? Let's look at this picture really quick before we move on, so you can see the strength of that artery wall compared to that sort of collapsible blue vein wall, just to give you that visual. Okay, and there's that purple of them meeting in the middle. So everybody wants to talk about like MCOs and stuff like that, but I'm starting to see something relevant beyond it because I saw the parasitic infection, and I started to wonder, is it just our cell that has been inundated with this parasite? Or is the body that we live in sick, maybe dying? Okay, and it's definitely got what appears to be parasitic, but I noticed that it completely correlates with something else called sepsis. And sepsis, here we go, sepsis has the exact same symptoms as a parasitic infection. So we talked about the Herxheimer and the different things that can happen to you when you start to get die-off in your body from the parasitic infection. It's the same thing that happens with the sepsis. You get the altered mental state. Okay, that's parasitic. Altered consciousness, mental confusion, delirium. Okay, and we're going to take that all the way to say mind-controlled. Fast respiratory rate, low blood pressure, elevated heart rate, which is, I was talking about that sort of scary feeling in the chest. It's that elevated heart rate, difficulty breathing, low body temperature, the chills. We talked about the chills in the Mount Meru video, how that demon has that cold aspect that it comes with it. That's why it lives under the ice on the outer reaches and the inner bore of our cell. Dizziness, fatigue, shivering, the facial flushing. Remember I talked about the extreme rash, shortness of breath, skin discoloration, dysfunction of one or more organs, shock, and sleepiness. Of course, we're all sleepy all the time here. That's part of being here, sleeping. Okay, so I'm starting to wonder, like, obviously there's a parasitic entity here. And I'm going to show you what I'm seeing as evidence of it. And there's a guy who does a really great video, and I'm going to link it below. He's going to say a lot of what I'm saying now. Sorry about that. And I'm just going to see if I can pull that up here really quick. About how you can see this parasite that came in. There's a quote from Thoth that says that, an entity came here and it had to eat human blood to stay. And we know that's going on. We know there's a vampiric, parasitic quality that's not only feasting on our flesh and blood, but the flesh and blood of animals, and also getting us to eat the flesh and blood of animals and to cannibalize on ourselves, okay? We're all sort of aware of that going on. And I'll show some of the imagery he shows in his. What he starts to show is like ancient Egypt imagery of how they did the mummification, the sarcophaguses, and how that mimics larva and parasitic-like behavior. The underground nests, and you see a lot of this in what they call Egyptian culture, which was way more likely a worldwide thing. Excuse me. So there it is again, like the mummies and the sarcophagus and the larva, waiting to turn into an adult. And, just the way that they're wrapped, almost like a webbing or a chrysalis-like wrapping. Okay, it's very insect-like. And so and here, and always the winged creatures, right? Angels, Isis, these winged creatures that hover over these mummified bodies. This is an insect-like invasion. Look how much it looks like these insects. And I don't know about you guys, but I've always felt like the insects were kind of what was wrong with this world, and they just didn't seem to fit. Didn't feel like home. Have all these bugs everywhere. There's the image of Isis, and with that, there's always the sun imagery, the sun worshiping, and they're sun worshipers because that is in that blue vein where you have that inverted light with the focal point of the plasma creating that time in the sun. That is a light that they can thrive under. This infection isn't going to thrive in the artery. It may make its way over there, though, if the body gets sick enough. And like we read in the artery vein differentiation, the artery will empty out if it gets that sick and that close to death. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Just like look at these Egyptian images. The winged, they're insects. Okay, and it looks like an insect. And there's a lot of insects that have humanoid-looking qualities, and I think that's why it was so easy for them to create this like culture of like, oh, they're mimicking nature, and oh, they're preparing these bodies for death, for the life to come. No. This is a parasitic invasion. Okay, then we get into that. And so what does it do? When it parasites into humanity like that, is that it gets a mammal to act like a bug, okay, to act like an insect. And I'm going to go back to the screenshots here because I found a bunch here. And we're pointing out, okay, this is like Madonna, right, coming into like a Super Bowl thing. And she's on a throne like a queen, like an ant, okay, an ant that would have the queen, and it would have all of its workers, and all the workers did everything and bring it back to the queen. That's like our society now, okay? And it shows her like standing up on the throne, making different insect-like movements. She's got the insect-like crown on her head, and there's the minions down below carrying her platform, working for her. And then they even have the big insect wings on the side when it makes it it makes its entrance. Okay, so there's a more close up of the wings that they're flapping up and down, and they do look like those Isis wings or whatever. So you have these bugs. Let's go back to here. So you have these bugs that we know about in our world too, and this is the kind of behavior that I think is happening. Some examples I found are like the horsehair worm, which uses mind control. Okay, it's a chemical, and they'll inject the chemical into the body. And say a lot of these ones that I looked up, like on National Geographic and stuff like that, they're doing it to another insect or a fish or perhaps a bird, are the examples that they give. But all life force here is subject to this. And they actually will inject crickets with these mind control chemicals and get the crickets to drown themselves in water so that they can get into the water to reproduce. And then they do it all over again. They just use the cricket as a means to get to the water. Okay. This one was really interesting. The web slinging wasp. the web-slinging wasp lays eggs on the abdomen or orbs of spider larvae and then injects the spider and gets it to build a crazy web. And so it's actually mind controlling the spider, where a spider would build its usual web to catch its food and do its thing. It gets the spider to build this wonky web that supports the cocoon that they build after they feast on the spider. So they use the spider to create this support system, and then they come in and they build their cocoon and they eat the spider to get nutrition for their larvae, you know. Okay, and then this one I actually took pictures of because it is so crazy. These are jeweled wasps. They called it the sting of doom. That's pretty funny. So these jewel wasps, they find a cockroach. And the first thing they do is they come up and they inject a chemical into the cockroach that paralyzes its front part of the body, its front legs. And remember, I talked about the parasite paralyzes paradise. And one of the first effects that we felt was a release of a paralysis that we did not even know was there, especially around speech and hands and some thought as well. So it paralyzes the front body of the cockroach. And once the cockroach is paralyzed here and it can't move, it then takes its stinger, see that, and injects a mind control chemical into the brain of the cockroach. Right. And then it snips off the cockroach's little antennas on the front and eats that for a little snack for its little journey that it's about to go on. And I think that's sort of a twofold thing. That's what the cockroach uses to feel where it's going. So that's gone. And then it leads it like a dog on a leash into a burrow. The cockroach is still alive, walking into this burrow. And who knows what the consciousness of that cockroach is, having been injected with the chemical, probably zombie-like. And then once in the burrow, this one isn't the best picture, but the cricket gets on top of the cockroach there and starts to lay its larvae there on the abdomen of the cockroach. And then the larvae works its way inside of the body of the roach so that it can grow. And by then the jewel wasp is off, the adult is gone. And so here it is, the larvae growing inside the body of the roach there. Now, does that not look awfully familiar? Like all of those Egyptian imageries of the mummification and the sarcophaguses and the jeweled winged body of the wasp over the top, laying this in there for it to incubate, and has taken over the body of the cockroach. And I would think by the time it got to this stage, finally the cockroach is dead. Let's hope that that's the case. And then once it reaches maturity, here it is flying out of the body of the cockroach to go and repeat the cycle. So that is, that's a really good, I thought that one was a really good basic imagery of what that parasite is doing, and it's doing it to humanity. There's another Egyptian image that looks an awful lot like that layout that we just looked at of that parasite. So, it just looks, this is another Egyptian image of mummification, and it just looks like insects. It just looks like bugs. I thought this was a very interesting Egyptian image. They have a lot of animal imagery, and you see this a lot in Hollywood. I shouldn't have even done it. Sorry. I know, it's whatever. So, a lot of people refer to this and say, oh, well, that's them. Like, don't tell everyone we're transgender. But I'm I'm starting to, you know, as you always take a subject deeper and deeper and deeper, you'll find the deeper and deeper meanings. And I'm starting to think it's more like, shh, don't tell everyone we're actually a jeweled wasp and not a cockroach, or whatever the parasite is and not a human. And one of the things, let's see if I can find a note about that. Oh, here's a really good image. You've got the giant beetle up there with that sun imagery. See, you have the winged insect over the sarcophagus or mummy body there. I mean, that is a parasitic invasion, you guys. And we're kind of blind to it. And we're blind to it because we're mind controlled. We've been mind controlled for however long this has been going on. So just to give you a few more ideas about how they can do this, there's a parasite that's actually a fungus that mind controls ants, and it does it through these infected pegs that like actually come out of the ants' bodies, and it also does it through exploding spores. You know, we all know about like candida. We've talked about candida a little bit, and the funguses, and this is so developed. I wonder if it's a multi-faceted approach that this parasite has gotten so clever, and obviously it's quite clever. But even the more simpler ones, right? Aren't they so clever? The way they have this venom, this chemical that can just turn you into a zombie. So anyway, there's these flukes, and they live in the ocean, and they lived in a horned snail, and the horned snail produces a larva that seeks out a particular fish. It's called the killfish. It attaches itself to the gills of the fish and then climbs into the fish's brain, releasing a chemical to make the fish jump and jerk around, attracting a water bird. And the water bird then eats the fish, and then that larva gets pooped out, or gets eaten, you know, by the water bird, and then it gets pooped out and eaten by the snail to start the whole thing over again. So it's just using this fish and this bird to do this disgusting parasitic life cycle for itself. And meanwhile, the fish and the bird are completely unaware. And this is illness, you guys. This is sepsis. This is the body being toxified to the point of danger. It's dangerous, and you can look around and see that it's dangerous. Okay, right, and just the constant sun worshiping. You know, I want to say something about the sun worshiping. I hope that this is all making sense, because I know I'm talking about a lot of different things at once. I'm going to show you just another imagery of the wrapped up cocoon body, the winged insect, and even the sun worship there. You know, and okay, and then there's that, the winged insect, and there's that eye imagery. So I've talked about the watchers before. I don't know if you've seen that video. I think it's called The Illuminated Well. And how there's the watchers, and that's who's controlling things here and stuff. And it's like, who are they? Who are they? Where are they? How are they doing all of this? Well, they're inside everybody. They're inside all of us. That's how they're doing all this. That's how they know everything that you say and do, and they've shrunk down enough and have gotten clever enough just to be living inside of every organism that is here. And somewhere I wrote it down. There's a particular one. Let's see if I can find that one. The more trauma that is inflicted. I don't know where I wrote that down. The more trauma that is inflicted the more that the certain kinds of parasites can be in a body. So I think, there's some correlation there with them transgendering themselves and all of the anal rape and things that go on, these blood feasts and the preying on children and their adrenochrome feasting and all of this. And so there is an amount of trauma that needs to take place for there to be an infection on certain levels. And I would think some of the ones that we see openly who are participating in this parasitic game are, I don't know, I mean, you think of like that cockroach image with the wasp inside of it. That's sort of how I'm starting to see it. They've gone through enough trauma and intensity that they're just the carrier of that parasite. While we all might have the infection of the parasite within us, we're not necessarily all infected to the same degree or with the same level of parasite. So, I mean, there's just so many ways that they can get in and start to mind control and stuff. And we talked about the spider, making the weird web so that they can hang their cocoon from it. And, I think about how they teach writing here and the glyphs and the writing sort of like as a spider-like behavior to communicate that way. Because I think that if we're in health and in the artery, or perhaps even, I might say this in a little bit, in the marrow of the bone, there's no need to communicate in the way that we are here. So they're getting us to act like insects. I want to go back to that a little bit. And so it's not a mammal-like behavior to have everybody working to give all of the goods to one family or group or a queen. I mean, let's take a look at, everybody works and gives their, and her family get, the lion's share. And these people rule more than that little island, as anybody who knows. And what does that look like? Really, it looks like the insect kingdom, that queen ant who sits on the throne and has all the workers do everything, sends out armies. Mammals don't create armies and stuff like that. That is insect-like behavior. It is evidence of an insect-like infection. And I want to, like even this picture, it says, Queen Ant will sacrifice the colony to retain her throne. Right? She's all fatted up there, and then there's her little workers. So it's like ants in that regard. These elite families who sit and gather all the goods unto themselves on the backs of others. So that is not mammal behavior. Okay, that's not the body that we sit in, which we are the image of, and that's been all torn apart and twisted, which I should speak to that as well. It's not an insect. The insect is the invasive sickness, the sepsis, okay, that we're dealing with here. And look at this insect-like behavior. Let's see if I can find amongst my Egyptian imagery here that I grabbed. Oh, I actually pulled the video a little bit. Hold on. Of that entrance of what's her name coming out. There's the worker ants. See her making the weird, creepy insect moves. Okay. And that's from that video that I'm going to link below. And the guy who made that video, which is a partial inspiration to this video, is also the moon video that I promote on my channel. And what's funny is that I was already researching this and doing all of this, And I'd been watching that guy's videos for a while, but I hadn't watched it in quite some time. And I went over there, and he had made this video, and it was exactly the same topic I was working on. I was floored. So there's that insect-like behavior. It looks like let me show you this one as well. I don't know what I was doing there. Trying to get this imagery. But I thought another good, he talks about the Ben stone, you know, and just the way there's like Mecca and how they move around that stone like insects worshiping. It's insect behavior, not mammal behavior. And we are definitely not insects. And I thought this was interesting imagery too, that, you know, there's the story of Adam and Eve in the garden, and then there's this interference, and it is like this blood interference, and all of a sudden there's this need to feast on blood, or have human blood be feasted upon. And it's like that story of health in the garden just gets overrun by this blood story. And you know, this imagery, as far as I'm concerned, is very much within Christianity. Okay. And the stories of aliens, right? Obviously are insects. Even that Baphomet character, that large demonic insect-like winged character. Okay, so where were we? So, go back to these. So I also found, just thinking about it, like what other evidence is there of the insect-like behavior amongst humanity now, besides, you know, armies going to war and everybody working to give away everything to a few rich people. I think that's very obvious. And then it's just within the culture. Like that stuff on Madonna was in that one guy's video, which I thought was just like, wow, that's glaring. And then look up that Lady Gaga, which is a man. You know, here it is dressing up like a fly. Here it is with a big insect on its head. You know, and here it is, in my opinion, sort of making some of those insect-like movements and motions. You know, I wonder how much of their symbology and hand stuff has to do with that. My goodness, look at, here it is being carried in an egg, or really like a chrysalis or larva looking thing that it then emerges from for some show that it does. And so let me just back up here 1 minute and say, when I was going through some of my most difficult times within my parasitic cleanse that I'm doing, I get this every period that I have. I get migraines. You doing okay, buddy? We'll go for a walk in about 30 minutes. Okay. Is that I get these migraines, and I have to, I love you. I have to lay in a dark room and sleep, but I can't really sleep because I'm in so much pain, but I can't really be awake either. So I lucid dream, and I'll lucid dream for hours. And so during this time, and actually since then, a lot I've been dreaming about the insects and all kinds of weird stuff. So one of the dreams I had that scared me the most, and I don't even know if I can describe the element of it that was so scary, but I was in this place, and there was stuff going on, there was people, and I saw a friend of mine go down and in somewhere that looked like I just didn't know that place was there. And so I followed him down in this thing and down and into this, like a burrow, you might say. It was dark, and I couldn't really see anything but this one imagery. And it was all green, like disease, like sepsis, like a pus color green. And there's a woman on a wooden platform, and her back is to me. and she's huddled down like this. She's wearing a white robe that looks green in the light, and there's 4 men carrying the platform, and they each have a hand on a wooden peg on the 4 corners of the wooden platform that she's sitting on, and they're holding her on the platform, and they're going like, and it's vibrating, and the vibration of it, the intensity of it, just it made me sick. Like I couldn't look at it for very long. But I remember like looking at it, going, "What's going on? What is that?" There was almost like a sexual element to it, but it wasn't like sex like we know it here. It was something I can't quite explain. And I went to go up and out of the burrow, and there was a big honeycomb in front of me, and it was green, and it was oozing green fluid. And I heard a woman's voice and a hand go over the honeycomb, and her saying, "Let it ooze, let it ooze." And the green was coming out of it, and I could feel that zzz. And I got up and out of there. And I woke up from that just with this. I'm going to look into that imagery further. It's hard for me to put words on it. And, you know, if you have something to express about that dream in the comments, please do. But that image I just showed you of her being carried in on this wooden platform held up by these 4 men, I was like, oh my gosh, that looks just like my dream. And then I looked up ritual royalty processions. I get this, a whole bunch of images like that of 4 men carrying the wooden platform. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there because the imagery came up so much, and the dream of it was so intense, and it was so insect-like with that vibrating. And I will say that I didn't feel like it was the men that were making the vibration, but that they were like a stabilizing force for it in some way, and they were holding it. So here is that same person, and you've probably seen this stuff. Here it is wearing a dress of meat, right? I think it made some video about all this raw meat, because that is their food. That's what they want. And, you know, here it is. I think it did some flying thing at a concert where, you know, it's like a drone. You know, and they make these metal things that are very insect-like. Helicopters, even planes, drones. These are all very insect-like things that they're making. And like this one, just here it is again, looking very insect-like in its costuming. This one, the big insect wings, and look at the boots there. These look like insect feet. So I started to notice, like, oh, gosh, here it is again. Insects on stage with the big things, whatever those are. Goodness, here I felt so many of this one dressing like an insect. Maybe like a big eye on the chest there. And so I started thinking, like, where, you know, you see this insect stuff. Once you see it, sort of like that color green thing, once you see it, it's hard to not see it. And even in the behavior of people around us, okay? Like that movie Alien is very much showing a parasitic entity using the human body to nest its larva. And even the alien stuff, the gray aliens to me look very insect-like. Right? And I thought about Michael Jackson's dance Thriller. It's got all the zombie people behind him, kind of green in color. They look infected, and yeah, and part of it, he, she, whatever, looks infected as well. And then those movements, you know, those insect-like movements of that dance that they do. For some reason, that one came into mind. I'm like, oh, that's super insect-like. And then I thought of just like, even like Backstreet Boys or like boy bands and stuff that do really jerky, Britney Spears even, they all sort of are dancing very insect-like. And then I thought about, it makes me think about vampires because they're really into the vampire culture. And just, you can really see it well in the movie Twilight where you've got Bella Swan. Here she is as a human. And then once she receives the venom of the bite, infected and zombie-like, and rather insect-looking like as well. So I'm hopefully that's enough imagery for you guys to get a really clear view of what I'm talking about here, that not only is there a parasite here, there's a parasitic infection. We've all been bitten. How deep does the mind control go? And if, okay, so I want to bring this back to us being also in the blue vein and in the body of a being which we resemble. I'll bring this together for you guys. So like a bacteria in the blood, a blood poisoning. It's a bacteria, that is crossed the blood-brain barrier, right? It's in a dangerous place of the body, like a staph, E. coli. And sepsis happens when there's a wound. We talk about the bore. Maybe our cell was bored into here, but perhaps there is a wound in the body that we are in, creating the sepsis, which can be contagious. Okay. The incubation of parasite. Oh, here's where I wrote about the greater the trauma, the more risk for sepsis. So the greater the trauma to, this is just speaking in biological terms, so the greater the trauma to the body, the more at risk the body is for infection and sepsis. So then I started to think, well, if we're in this blue vein and there's this infection, the parasitic, bacterial, whatever it is, fungal, if it's far-reaching, if it's gotten to be on all these different fronts, like, who are we? Who are we? And I started to look up, like, what in the body fights infection? Like, we know white blood cells rush to an area. And I started looking at the identity of a platelet. And there was just something about the platelets that made me go, are we platelets? So platelets are tiny blood cells, and they help the body form clots to stop bleeding. And so if a vessel gets damaged, I'm just going to read some of my notes here. If a vessel gets damaged, it sends out signals that are picked up by platelets, which then rush to a site of damage and form a plug or clot to repair the damage. Okay, let's stop right there. And so when I heard that, listen to that again. If a vessel gets damaged, it sends out signals picked up by platelets, which then rush to the site of the damage. And it made me think about, I don't know if you've ever looked at her work, if you've been around for any length of time, you probably have, Dolores Cannon, and she was a hypnotherapist. And she hypnotized so many people in her career. I think she might say a number somewhere in her work. But there was one common thread of every single person that she ever hypnotized, and it was, I heard the call. I heard the call to come here. I heard the call to come and help. And then I read that about the platelet, and I was like, oh, we're platelets or something like that, some sort of cell that comes and helps repair damage when a body has been wounded or infected. And immediately I thought of like the Pleiades and, these different origin places. And it really expanded my view too of who and where and what we are within the body, and that perhaps our access to other places in the body is much more vast than I have realized prior in my earlier work. Like I said, always digging, always looking more. So, and the platelet, it would explain the reason why we all have this sense of like we're supposed to be doing something. We're supposed to be helping. Everyone sort of has that savior thing. Like, I want to save the world. I want to help people. I'm supposed to be doing something here. I forgot what it was. And that is to me, the brilliance of the mind control parasite is that it, once you get here to the infected point, there's that chemical that they use to control the mind, or even to take over the body in some way where you do forget your mission and why you came, even who you are, where you are. The entire thing goes out the window because you're suddenly put into this environment where you can't remember and you can't even think. You can't even access your own information within this body. Because if it's happening here in this body, it's happening here in this body. And so I started to think about how profound that was and how you would want the platelets and the cells in your body to be remembering who they were and doing their job and doing the right thing. And so I was very curious, what are platelets? Where do they... Are you okay, baby? Your walk is in 20 more minutes. We'll go very soon. Sorry for the whining puppy. He's already been out today. So platelets form when cytoplasmic fragments of megakaryocytes, I'm probably not pronouncing that well, but they're large cells that live in bone marrow is what those are, pinch off into the circulation as they age, as they get older. So they mature and they pinch off when cytoplasmic fragments, when they mature. So they're stored in, the body will store them in the spleen and will store them in the lungs as well. And the lungs, as I've looked into all this biology, the lungs are such a place of portal. I think the lungs is one of the places where, as a cell or a platelet or whatever we are, would actually leave one body to go to another body. It would be through the lungs. So, born of the bone. Some of this just feels right to me. Born of the bone, stored in the lungs, stored in the spleen, hearing the call to duty, the call to help. And you came. You came within the blood and within the cytoplasm, and you came to do a job. And then once you got here, you're in the insect parasitic infection. And there's more evidence of just how insect-like this is. I mean, look at the cities. Look at where they have everybody living in these nests. They're like nests. And then what are they putting up everywhere? Antenna. These towers and antenna. And once you see the insect-like behavior and the insect-like creations that they make, you'll never unsee it. And so one of the other things I found interesting, medicines, pharma, certain kinds of medicines you can take can interfere with platelets in your body. So I do think a big role of big pharma and the health industry and stuff like that is to mess with the platelets and the system within us, which obviously messes with the larger picture as well. And so it is important for your body, your bone marrow specifically, to have a certain level of platelets within it. And should have 150,000 to 450,000 platelets per liter of blood. And for some reason, so I saw less than 50,000 platelets is very dangerous number. And I don't know why that number just stuck out to me. And obviously there's different zeros behind it, and reminded me of the Georgia Guidestones. And the Guidestones say, to keep humanity at, it says like 500 million, but it's that same 50000 number for control. It's a very similar number. And I thought, oh, maybe they're talking about the platelets. It's dangerous for the bone marrow's platelets to get to a certain low population. You know, and that's just me using my instincts there, that one reminded me of the other. So who are you? Aside from the idea that you may be a platelet on a mission to heal the body, and really quick, just a little more on that this is an important mission. Our body could die. You know, we could lose this body. And it's not that we would not then enter into another body. I believe that we would. I don't believe there's a way out of biology, because I truly believe that that is what our identity is. And to put that back into, because I didn't expound on this, the aspect of knowing who we are, all being put into this religious realm and that spirit realm. I did a video about, you know, your beautiful biological truth versus this spiritual lie. You know, so I've said this many times, but, you know, I've been reading the Essence Humane Gospel, and there's something very specific that I see there. I see they use this God character to play duality. So it's God and it's Satan, and that's the same person playing two roles. And you can read within the gospel where that entity, whether it be one or the other, is showing up. And it'll say God did this or that. And then you'll read another passage where it'll say something so beautiful. And I wish I had written a couple examples down, but I might do another video on this. And I see that all they did was they took the O out of the word good. And that goodness says, that goodness is, that goodness does. And that is what and who you are as an identity, is you are good. You know, like what you would say to your dog, you are good. And this is who you are behind the parasite. Who am I? The quiet one. All this chatter, that's not you. I'm sorry, this makes me emotional. But you are the observer. Hi, baby. You are the observer behind the noise. The pure intent. The good, the true. Okay? And that character, Jesus, come here, baby, which they turned into worshiping the sun. But, you know, a lot of the story of Jesus is about sun worship, especially like the birth and the death and stuff like that. And what I see in that character, because that character is so appealing to humans for a reason, it's because it is about humans. It is a story of human ability, human wisdom and knowing, and the human power to instill and remind others who they are, which is what that character was constantly doing. The character wasn't an individual person. That character is all of us. And I had a really beautiful commenter, you know, leave a comment that said, you know, Jesus being nailed to the cross is humanity being pinned to the five senses. And I think that is very apt. You know, and that's part of that, what that parasitic chemical infection does to the human, is it pins it to those five senses, and only, you know, creating that zombie-like effect. So the Jesus story is really just humans, and then played again on duality, just like the god Satan with the sun worshiping. Look at all that confusion. You know, and that's why people who are super Christian, who are really into the Jesus Savior thing, you know, that's why they're so mean and nasty to people who want to think outside that box, because it has so much of the parasitic infection in it. You know, and I promoted Roger over at Mud Fossil University recently, and I do still absolutely love his work. I guess I just realized recently that he's super into Jesus, and I mean, to me, that name is Zeus. It's just a play on words there. They're just saying Zeus. And if you think that they would allow buildings all over the world to be built on ley lines with tons of humans inside of them, chanting this name over and over again, and that's your savior, you are not paying attention, especially if you are aware of the corruption of the world and all that's going on here to such a degree. How can you think that would be allowed? That the parasitic infection isn't going to allow everybody to be sitting on the ley lines chanting the name of the Savior. It is all misdirection and sun worship, and that character is you. And you know, that's super permeates the New Age culture too. Oh, like the Christ consciousness and stuff. You got to quit naming things. Do not invoke names. I've said this so many times. Don't invoke names. You are the quiet one. You are not using words. You are behind the scenes watching. You have been paralyzed. And you are deep, deep within there. And you are not a spirit. Okay, you are the body. And that's why part of the story of Jesus too, he says, I am the body. I am the blood. That's you. That's you. That's not something outside of you claiming that. I really hope that makes sense. So yeah, I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. I really needed to say all of this and get this out of my head and onto a video. And I am on the quest to find my true identity, why I'm here, and if I'm here to heal a wound and save this body that we're in, I'd like to get to the work that I'm meant to be doing. And you know, you look around at the world and think, wow, this is a really lost cause. How can we remind everybody of this? And you know, everyone here on YouTube is super into these plasma events, and this thing's going to come and everything's going to be better and stuff. But it might not go that way if we don't do our job. And I'm not saying that that's true. I'm just saying that the goal is health, and to get back to the garden, to get back into the good place, to get back into the artery, into that pulsing flow of healthy oxygenated blood, and to do our job here and to finish this. I might do a part 2 of this video, because as I go to wrap it up, I realize there's so many vital things to say, but we've probably gone on for quite a while here. So that's it for now. I really look forward to your guys' feedback on this video. And you, we